The Knicks could make a significant move at the trade deadline. According to an NBA insider with Bleacher Report, he notes that the Knicks could be looking at 3 specific players to target at the deadline, and they could be looking to use Evan Fournier as the main particular player in order to get that trade done to help upgrade the Knicks roster. We're going to break down this report, see exactly who Bleacher Report thinks the New York Knicks could target at the trade deadline, and which one of these targets are the most realistic. All of this and so much more today. So be sure you're subscribed to the channel and have notifications turned on so you don't miss a second of the new content. And now, let's get started. The Knicks could make a significant move at the trade deadline. Now we know the Knicks and Leon Rose have been looking at stars and superstars around this league to potentially trade for, to get them on the Knicks, to make the Knicks a bona fide championship contender in the NBA. However, until that move happens, it doesn't mean that the Knicks can't look at smaller moves that they can make to help upgrade this Knicks roster and make them better. And according to Bleacher Report, the Knicks may be looking to do that and may be looking to use Evan Fournier and his remaining contract in order to make a deal happen. And this is no surprise to me, because since the offseason, the Knicks have been trying to move Evan Fournier. The unfortunate part is, every single trade proposal on the table had the Knicks adding draft compensation in order to move Fournier. That's the main reason why Fournier's a Knick right now. And of course, a lot of reports going into camp and going into the season had the Knicks potentially making a deal at the deadline, because that's the reason they kept Fournier. Because a lot of people knew that the Knicks weren't going to play Fournier significant minutes on this Knicks team this season. We all knew that. So we knew that only the reason the Knicks kept him on the team was to potentially use him and a couple of other players, maybe a couple of other picks, with another team to trade for a piece that the Knicks consider significant enough to make that deal happen so they can help upgrade their roster in a really wide open Eastern Conference. Let's break down the Bleacher Report article and let you know exactly what they said and what particular trade targets the Knicks are looking at. According to Bleacher Report's Greg Schwartz, he believes that the New York Knicks will use Evan Fournier's contract for salary matching in a trade. Schwartz states Fournier continues to watch from the outside of the Knicks rotation and should be a prime trade candidate at the deadline. His contract, essentially an expiring one, valued at $18.9 million with a $19 million team option, could become valuable as a salary matcher while keeping the rest of this core intact. He notes that Evan Fournier's contract actually lines up similarly to that of OG Anunoby, Bojan Bogdanovic, Kelly Olynyk, or a package of Doug McDermott and Cedi Osman. With some extra first-round picks to spare, attaching Fournier's contract to some draft capital could lead the New York Knicks to another rotation player. Shout out to Greg Schwartz for giving us this update and basically clarifying something that we already knew, that the New York Knicks were likely going to be players at the trade deadline and likely going to use Evan Fournier's contract in some way or another to get a player on this team to help upgrade this Knicks team, again, in an Eastern Conference that doesn't really have a set of a top 5 right now, and the Knicks could vault themselves in there and potentially solidify themselves as a top 3 team if they make the right move. Now, I want to go to what Greg Schwartz said from Bleacher Report and what he stated in this article regarding the players that the New York Knicks could potentially go after, given Evan Fournier and his contract, and what players and their contracts line up with his. And the players that he stated was OG Anunoby, Bojan Bogdanovic, Kelly Olynyk, or a package of Doug McDermott and Cedi Osman. So first things first, OG Anunoby. Now for me, if you could flip Evan Fournier and a couple of first-round picks, protected or unprotected, for OG Anunoby, if you could do that as Leon Rose, that would be the steal of the trade deadline, in my opinion, because that would be the move that the Knicks need to make. The Knicks need absolutely a wing that can both defend and can score. OG checks that box. He's CAA now, and even though he has a player option for next year, if he does well with the Knicks this season, which he probably will, he'll likely re-sign with the New York Knicks, and the Knicks will take care of him because he's CAA. So it makes sense to me. However, here's where things get a little bit tricky. The Knicks and the Raptors are embroiled in a lawsuit right now. The Knicks have come out openly and stated that they are seeking $10 million plus in damages. Once that happens, and there's so much bad blood, do you really think that the Raptors and the Knicks are going to do business? They should. It does make sense for both parties. But will they? They won't. So unfortunately, even though I'd love to see it, even though he fits the Knicks perfectly, even though they should do the trade, they won't. He's not going to become a Knick, at least not this season while he's a Raptor. Maybe if he explores free agency, maybe then he'll become a Knick. But today, right now, as he's part of the Raptors, he's not going to become a Knick. So let's go to the other names then. So then he says Bojan Bogdanovic. That name is the most realistic name on this entire list. I did a video about this already. If you haven't watched that video, please go ahead and check it out. It's in the video channel right now. If you haven't seen it, I already go through thoroughly why I think Bojan Bogdanovic is the perfect fit for this Knicks team in terms of if you can get him for a steal. If you have to give up multiple first-round picks for a player who is aging, may not see that many minutes, and likely, even though he's a great three-point shooter, how often is Tom Thibodeau going to use him in his rotation? We have to think about these things. But regardless of that, if you can upgrade your roster with a guy like Bojan Bogdanovic, that is something that you do, especially if it's only going to cost you Evan Fournier and maybe some second-round picks. If it's going to cost you some first-round picks, maybe think about potentially giving them back a pick. But if you can't do that, then the only thing that I would say to do then is not make that trade. I can't, for the life of me, part with first-round picks to get Bojan Bogdanovic. If they can work it out in some way that the Knicks only have to give up Evan Fournier and some second-round picks to flip that trade and get it done, I am absolutely doing that deal every single day because that move helps the Knicks. It gets them off of Evan Fournier, number one. And number two, it brings them a backup power forward because he can play power forward. And this big can shoot the three. He's a career near 40% from three. You have to give him credit for that. And that means defenses are going to have to respect him from the corner, have to respect him from the perimeter and three. And that means the lanes are going to open up for your players that drive. R.J. Barrett, Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, who plays a lot more bully ball nowadays. You have to love it. This one for me is the most realistic. Detroit and the New York Knicks have done business a lot since Leon Rose has taken over. So that's another reason why I think it's most realistic. Keep an eye on Bojan. He is coming off of injury as well too, and we don't know how he's going to perform with all these young kids and what they have going on in Detroit. Detroit is looking very, very bad this season. It's likely they're going to want to send him off to another team. He's aging. It doesn't make any sense for him to be there. He should be shipped off to a team right now that he can help or a legit contender, and I think he can help the Knicks right now, especially if the deal makes sense. Hopefully, we'll watch this deal and we'll watch this play out for the entire season. But this, for me, most realistic and the one to absolutely watch. He's aging. It doesn't make any sense for him to be there. He should be shipped off to a team right now that he can help or a legit contender. And I think he can help the Knicks right now, especially if the deal makes sense. Hopefully, we'll watch this deal and we'll watch this play out for the entire season. But this, for me, most realistic and the one to absolutely watch. Kelly Olynyk. You mean Kelly Olynyk for the Utah Jazz? You mean the Utah Jazz that wouldn't trade anything to us that was fair for Donovan Mitchell at the time, and you want us to do business again with them? I'm pretty sure Leon Rose is soured on the Jazz and that entire organization, and I don't think they're even going to pick up the phone, even if Kelly Olynyk is available. And by the way, I think Olynyk's been available for the last 2 seasons. I just don't think anybody has a need right now to add him at this point in his career and what he can do. But right now, I don't think the Knicks are going to be that team to pull the trigger, call the Utah Jazz, and want to get him on the team. So I'm going to put a big no on that trade as well, too. Not realistic in my point of view. So then we're going to go to Doug McDermott and C.D. Osman, a package of that. That has always been realistic. That's been the trade scenario that's been on the table since the summer. One of the main trades rumored to be on the table was Evan Fournier, Doug McDermott, and at the time, Suns point guard Cam Payne, who is now a point guard for the Milwaukee Bucks. So with all that situation going on, the Knicks clearly wanted to make that move and have that deal go down. And I think it would have if a lot of draft compensation wasn't involved. Now, even with this particular scenario here, what we're hearing here from at least Greg Schwartz is that the Knicks would likely have to give up draft compensation in one of these deals to get one of these players. Some of the deals, I understand why you give up draft compensation. But for a Doug McDermott, I don't know how much draft compensation you'd be willing to give up. Second round picks, sure. But if you're having to give up first round picks for more role players, I don't know if the Knicks are going to want to do that. And I don't know how much sense it makes for the Knicks to do that either. Because again, it sounds like to me, you'd be giving up first round picks just to get off a contract. And I don't want the Knicks to continue that unnecessary habit. They shouldn't have to. As Schwartz stated here, Evan Fournier's contract is essentially an expiring one because after this year, he has a team option. So the Knicks can waive him and he's not even going to be on the books anymore. So it doesn't hurt the Knicks to hold on to him, and it will help the Knicks by the trade deadline if they want to make a move because that salary filler that he has with his contract is absolutely going to be something that teams are going to look at and might be something to help facilitate a trade. But what about you guys? What do you think? What do you think about Greg Schwartz from Bleacher Report and what he reported here about the Knicks, what they're going to do potentially at the trade deadline, and all the players that potentially they could go after? Who's the most realistic in your mind? Do you agree with me? Is it Bogdanovic or is it another player that you saw on this list? Let me know in the comments below, guys, because honestly, I would love to hear from you. But that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, go ahead and smash that like button, leave a comment below, and of course, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Knicks fans. Peace.